Absolutely no gold, no oil, and virtually zero natural resources. Oh, and you're sitting right in the shadow of a massive superpower that doesn't even think your island should exist as a separate entity. Sounds completely impossible, right? Well, Taiwan almost didn't happen, but the leaders of this resource-starved island realized something incredibly important early on. If you want to survive when you're surrounded by giants, you need a master plan. You literally have to make yourself so undeniably essential to the rest of the world that nobody can afford to let you fall. Welcome to this explainer where we're going to break down exactly how a poverty-stricken rock completely transformed itself into the world's most essential manufacturer. Let's dive right in. Just look at the sheer contrast here. On one side, you have this incredibly desolate starting point, a place completely dependent on the outside world for basic materials. But then on the other side, their current reality as an absolute technological titan. They are the high-tech heart of the global economy. This is really the ultimate underdog narrative. They didn't just stumble into this success, they forged it out of a sheer vow for survival. They decided, plain and simple, that Taiwan would be essential. And honestly, the stakes couldn't have been any higher. So, to understand exactly how they pulled off this miracle, we're going to follow their blueprint step by step. We'll look at step 1, an unlikely superpower, step 2, the mascot companies, step 3, building the digital brain, and finally, step 4, the silicon shield. All right, starting with step 1, an unlikely superpower. To really grasp the magnitude of this, we've got to rewind a bit to post-World War II Taiwan. Back then, Taiwan was what historians call an underdeveloped agrarian state, basically a country of very poor farmers. But they were facing a massive systemic problem. Most of the land, and therefore all the wealth, was being hoarded by a tiny group of landowning elites. This is a massive roadblock, like a giant puzzle you can't solve. As we've seen historically in places like India or North Korea, if you want to modernize a nation, you absolutely have to break the grip of that old guard so wealth can reach the average person. Plus, with communist revolutions brewing in neighboring countries, just keeping things the way they were was basically a death sentence. So how did they fix it? Well, they rolled out a massive land reform program, and it brilliantly shows how pragmatic they were. First up, they took the land from the rich elites. Second, they redistributed it directly to the farmers who were actually out there working it. Third, and this is the absolute game changer, they let those farmers keep their own profits. Suddenly, poor farmers had a huge incentive to actually be productive. And fourth, by giving the people a real stake in the land, it totally legitimized the government and secured public loyalty. It completely neutralized the threat of a communist uprising because they ensured the people were actually on their side. Moving right along to step 2, the mascot companies. Okay, so once the farms were stabilized and the food supply was secure, the government urgently shifted its focus. But they didn't just cross their fingers and hope the free market would figure things out. No way. Instead, they used a system called indicative planning. Think of the government like a really hands-on coach. The state sets these broad, super ambitious targets for the whole economy and then heavily convinces private businesses to step up and hit those targets. It's a highly structured partnership designed for one thing: rapid growth. Let's look at the exact playbook they ran under this state capitalist model. First, the government sets the targets. Second, they took control of the banks, which meant they controlled all the savings in the entire country. Third, they unleashed vast amounts of that money to fund very specific, hand-picked local businesses. These were their mascot companies. And fourth, to make sure these mascots didn't fail, they outright banned foreign competitors. They essentially built a walled garden, a safe space with heavy funding for local companies to grow, experiment, and make mistakes without being instantly crushed by Western corporate giants. Now, this whole evolution required an incredible amount of patience. They didn't just jump straight into making high-tech microchips overnight. They started with rice farming, post-World War II. Then they transitioned into labor-intensive stuff like making cheap clothing and textiles. They'd buy the raw materials from the West, stitch them into cheap t-shirts, and sell them back for a profit. Actually, it wasn't glamorous work at all, but man, was it strategic. This era of cheap textiles built up the immense capital they were desperately going to need for their next massive leap. Which brings us to step 3, building the digital brain. The leaders realized pretty quickly that you can't reach the giddy heights of a first-world country just by sewing t-shirts forever. Cheap labor was not going to cut it anymore. They needed a massive injection of true innovation. So they pivoted hard. They realized the absolute best resource they had on this tiny island was their own people. They took all that newly acquired capital and poured it into a rigorous system of universal education, obsessively focusing on engineering and vocational training. While other command economies at the time were suffocating in bureaucracy, Taiwan was deliberately building a workforce that could handle the most complex machinery in the world. They didn't just want a big workforce, they demanded a fiercely smart workforce. And this sets up a foundational economic concept that Taiwan is arguably the absolute best case study for:
Comparative advantage. Economists are notoriously terrible at naming things, but the concept itself is total genius. It's the idea that you shouldn't stubbornly try to make everything yourself. Instead, you focus all your energy on the few things you are genuinely world-class at, and then you trade those things to the rest of the world for the resources you lack. This logic drove their most defining decision.
In the 1980s, the government made its biggest, most audacious bet yet. They saw the digital revolution on the horizon and decided Taiwan was going to be the place that physically built it. They founded TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. And here is the strategic masterstroke. They didn't try to design the absolute fanciest computers to compete with Western brands. No, they focused entirely on making them. They took on the incredibly complex, highly precise, dirty work of manufacturing that Western companies found way too expensive and tedious to do themselves. So, what was the results of that hyper-focused bet on comparative advantage? Well, I want you to think about the device you're watching this on right now. Because today, Taiwan produces an absolutely staggering percentage of the planet's most advanced microchips. That number is 90%. It's honestly hard to even wrap your head around that. 90% of the advanced microchips, the digital brains powering literally everything from our smartphones to our cars, right up to medical equipment and military hardware, come from this one island. The rest of the entire world combined, just 10%. They actually fulfilled their vow by dominating this single global industry. They made it so that if Taiwan stops working, the entire global economy stops working. And that leads us to our final phase, step 4, the silicon shield. This absolute market dominance, it isn't just about economics anymore. It's about sheer survival and some really intense geopolitical realities. Economists refer to this dynamic as the silicon shield. Let this quote really sink in for a second. A war over the island would trigger a Great Depression that would make 1929 look like a minor recession. Because Taiwan is so utterly indispensable to the global supply chain, an attack on them is essentially an attack on the modern world's capability to even function. For a small island that isn't a nuclear power, holding the absolute keys to the digital age is a unique and incredibly powerful form of self-defense. But this success comes with a very sobering price. To keep that shield active, you can never, ever slow down. The government and the tech industry there exist in a state that is often consumed by fear. Fear of hostile neighbors. Fear of being abandoned by powerful allies if they ever lose their edge. They face this relentless, crushing pressure to constantly innovate and stay light years ahead of everyone else. Because if they don't, if someone else figures out how to make these chips better or cheaper, they lose the only shield keeping them safe. The Taiwan blueprint really is a masterclass in survival. It proves that you don't need oil or gold to become a global superpower. You just need a ruthlessly smart plan, massive investments in your people, and the sheer courage to make yourself the one thing the world simply cannot live without. They started with nothing, and they survived by becoming the literal brain of the planet. But it leaves us with a fascinating, provocative thought to end on today. Can this exact blueprint actually be replicated by other small nations today using indicative planning? Or has the chip market, and really the modern digital economy, already been cornered for good? I always look forward to learning from you, so think about that and let us know your thoughts on what nation's blueprint we should explore next. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.